episode of the Fairway to Retail Success is brought to you by AGM vendor partner T-Commerce, the online retail solution for golf facilities. T-Commerce helps merchandisers and golf professionals expand sales beyond the physical shop and fill merchandising gaps. Give your members and customers the convenience of shopping online 24/7, all with no extra inventory risk or additional work for your staff. Visit tcommerce.shop to learn how easy it is to take your shop online. Now, back to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fairway to Retail Success and AGM podcast. I'm your host, Justine Cook, the AGM's Director of Membership and Education. Today, I'm joined by Ann Cantrell, an associate professor in the Fashion Business Management Department at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. For more than 10 years, Ann has been shaping the next generation of retail leaders, teaching courses in sustainability, supply chain, leadership, and fashion forecasting. And I was lucky enough to have her as a professor when I was studying at FIT, which makes this conversation extra special for me. Before her career in academia, Ann worked in planning and product development for iconic brands like Brooks Brothers, Ralph Lauren, Talbots, and Coach. With an SMBA and a deep focus on both environmental and economic sustainability, she also brings real-world perspective as a longtime owner of Annie's Blue Ribbon General Store, a beloved community staple in Brooklyn's Park Slope neighborhood. In our conversation today, we'll talk about Ann's career journey, offer insight into what trends we can expect to see in 2026, and discuss what golf retail can learn from the broader retail and fashion world. We can expect her to provide some practical advice on how merchandisers can apply mainstream retail strategies to elevate the golf shop experience. Anne, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely introduction. And I love that we still keep in touch after all these years together. And I'm
Yes.
still teaching that forecasting class, although we have definitely moved, we're always moving forward here at FIT, but it's still such a big part of the industry.
That's amazing. I love that. So, you've had such an interesting career journey at the crossroads of retail and education. Can you share a little bit more of what your path was and what led you to your current role at FIT and as a boutique business owner yourself?
Yes, yeah, it's actually really funny. I'm part proactive and part reactive to things. Have always thought about myself, but I found my first job in the New York Times working at Brooks Brothers and loved that job. Met some great people there, but wanted to do something more creative. I was working with a lot of numbers as a planner, and so I moved to Ralph Lauren and got into not the most creative role at first, production, but slowly moved into product development, and that's where I found my passion. But seriously, since like my first day at my corporate job, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always was writing business plans and taking pictures of fixtures. And whenever someone would give me a present that I loved, I would keep track of it. And I had all these binders going for that eventually became my Modern General store in Brooklyn. But my husband used to say, what's in all those binders you move from apartment to apartment? And I'd be like, that's my master plan. So anyway, I finally opened after taking some time to get funding and figuring out my next moves and still consulting in the corporate world. I opened in 2007, which, as if anyone remembers, is like was the pretty much the start of the recession. So I was really lucky that we had varying price points, which I think is super important with any retailer. And we were really able to make a go of it. And now, 18 years later, I'm really excited to be celebrating such big milestones like that. I did in that time period, though, also keep in touch and miss the fashion industry very much. So when someone reached out to me on LinkedIn, I think, actually, I'm always telling my students LinkedIn, I'm a LinkedIn success story, that about teaching here at FIT, I jumped at the chance. It was a my first class was a Friday afternoon class that no other professors wanted to teach. And slowly I started really connecting with the students and other classes. And I've been full time here, I think, for about 13, 14 years now.
Incredible. I love that crossroads between retail and education, which we're all about
Yes,
at the AGM, and then
absolutely.
entrepreneurship. So really cool crossroads
Yes, I
there.
know. I always say I'm like my such I'm teaching such synergistic things. It's not like I'm
Hmm.
in marine biology and then go back to the store. It's really a lot
Right.
of the things that I do at my store, I'm like talking
Mhm.
about in the classroom and so vice versa. So yeah, actually a lot of synergies with you guys as
Yeah.
well.
Yes, yeah. And I think that was something that really came with me from FIT was that so many of the professors are working out in the industry too. So they have that real world perspective, whether they're consulting or they're in corporate roles and teaching. So that's always really cool and something special about FIT, I think, is that industry live knowledge you're getting.
Yes, absolutely.
From your perspective as both an educator and as a retail professional, what are some of the biggest changes you've witnessed in the retail landscape over the past decade or so?
Yeah, good question. There have just been so many changes, I think, in the industry. First of all, I think that we really have to talk about the pandemic. It is still not only just crazy time for retail and for every industry, but it was also the greatest accelerator for online
Mm,
business shift. I think there's some quotes that say we did 10 years,
mm,
that we accelerated so quickly within 10, that short period that it would equate to about 10 years in if we hadn't witnessed and lived through the pandemic like that. So I think a lot of things happened during that time period and that shift the way that consumers buy. And it certainly accelerated timeframes about how quickly people wanted things. And then we moved into a big shift with the de minimis exemption, where things like Shein and Temu, brands like Shein and Temu, were able to really import instant fashion to us fairly quickly, but really winning on price and not as much on time since they were importing directly from China. The de minimis was rolled back recently, and along with a lot of other changes in tariffs, we're really seeing
mm,
some significant moves from large brands about where they're making things, where they're sourcing their products from.
mhm,
I know from a fashion perspective, worried about cotton prices and other
mm,
things like that. So it's a constant pivot. It is something that we have to always be keeping in mind and figuring out where our supply chain is coming from, checking prices, locking in as early as possible when we
mhm,
can, and planning our assortments as quick as in timely manner so that we're getting the best deals and just questioning prices all the time too. I've been hearing people getting charged even though there's already stock on the supplier shelves, just getting prices that were changing with the different
mm,
tariffs and things like that.
mhm.
So just questioning things, being mindful and careful about how we're progressing and keeping an eye on the business world as well.
I've heard that happening too from our retailers of the pricing that they thought they had already locked in and the goods are in America. So definitely that's
Yeah,
something
I
to
know.
look
It's
forward.
yeah, disconcerting at best.
Yes. Yeah. So looking ahead at 2026, what key trends do you anticipate, whether it's color, fabrication, or just general lifestyle too, that retailers should really be paying attention to when they're going to market, when they're visiting with their vendors and placing their buys?
Yes, there's so much fun color happening right now, and I think that is such an easy way to translate into the golf world.
Mm.
Being pinks, cerulean blue, which is, if everyone remembers the OG quote from Devil Wears Prada about cerulean blue, that'll forever be ingrained in my brain. We're seeing a switch from butter yellows to
Mm,
bright yellows down the runway.
okay.
I loved there was a vitamin C like orange, so really bright and pops of color, as well as a lot of grounding earth tones. Loving all the browns. I think that really is translatable to the golf world as well. Some
Mhm,
grays, Loewe and other retailers like Miu Miu and Saint Laurent. Really exciting to see that. And we talk about this in our education world as well, but like how a color in one season evolves into the next, like whether
mhm,
it's that yellow or
mhm,
orange from a pumpkin to a bright
mm,
orange,
mm,
vitamin C, that bold orange that we can just picture. We want to think about what, even when we talk color, that it's about the right season that we're bringing in and think about how we also need solids as well when we're merchandising about your own customer and how many risks they're going to want to take. Maybe we just want
Right.
to have a few of those key points. When I worked in the industry, we would balance our color assortment all the
Mhm.
time. Mostly the neutrals would sell. At my store right now, it's like the opposite. All the bright colors sell, but you have to know what's going to be right for your customer. But if there's just a nod to some of these bold, bright hues and how they're pulling them together in different ways, even at the front of the store, but then anchored with the solids and traditional looks as
Mhm.
well, I think that would be helpful. In terms of fabrications, you mentioned that I have a background in passion for sustainability, and I really think that the looking for next gen materials has been a really big push, not just from the perspective of fabrics that are going to be right for the golfing customer, but also just the next gen materials that are really coming out of the textile world and how we're
Mhm.
advancing sustainability in that element. And then also silhouettes. I think silhouettes
Mm.
have really evolved. Like you don't really hear that very often, but leggings were pretty much pronounced dead across the board in a lot of fashion places, including a big article in the Wall Street Journal, which I have mentioned before with you guys, that I just think is such a great place to look for fashion. I think
Mhm.
it's really where perhaps the golf customer is looking as
Mm.
well in the off-duty
Yes.
section. But looser silhouettes or at least bottoms paired with a balance top, I think we're really seeing some
Mm.
movement there that we haven't seen in a while as
Mhm.
well.
Yes, that's an interesting one. One we'll have to keep our eye on for sure.
Yes.
So, beyond product themselves, are there any broader retail shifts around things like consumer behaviors, technology? I know you touched a little bit on sustainability as well, that you see perhaps influencing retail experiences in the near future. How are consumers changing and taking in retail, so to speak?
Yes, we're in a really interesting time right now with AI being
Mm,
at the forefront of everyone's mind about how it plays out in the business world and in education and so many different angles.
mm,
I really think that most customers really want authenticity as almost like a backlash to that. They want to know that there's real people making their goods. They really want
mm,
to hear the storytelling behind that from a
mhm,
culture perspective. They want to connect with people, right?
mhm,
A lot of what we're seeing right now is a move towards more connection. And I think there's some lessons we can learn from all of that. So embrace storytelling, talk about the vendors and makers that you're selling, and not just focus on the product all the time, but maybe the
mm,
storytelling behind it. We can test new products out and see how they go, tell their story. We
mhm,
can react quickly and bring it back in and really curate with intention, not
mm,
just really start to question what I do this all the time in my store, but question like another retailer or the brand's best sellers might not be
mm.
right for you. Really think about authenticity with your own customer and wherever you're located and see what's going to work for your specific area.
I love that authenticity and storytelling. I think that's awesome. We say that our buyers are the editors of their golf shop, that they can't have all the things and all the brands and just everything all at once. It's their job to curate that, like you said, and edit it
Right.
down. And I think leaning into the vendor stories, all that of that storytelling is really special. So,
Yes, and there's really simple ways to do that too. At my store, we have we we like little signs or things that explain who the maker is, who the
mm-hmm.
vendor is. Maybe you can even bring in some local businesses, and it doesn't always have
Yes,
to be so golf related. Maybe it's
absolutely.
coffee at the club before tee off time, or it's a local coffee brand or something like
Yeah,
that.
yes.
So you're putting a name and you're creating not just a store, but a place that people want to hang out to.
Right, like a community focus. And I think those
Absolutely.
local artisans will really stand out in a shop. That's
Absolutely.
amazing. And golf retail can often be a little bit slower to adapt to trends than mainstream retailers typically are. Are there any lessons that you think golf merchandisers can take from fashion and lifestyle retail and more mainstream sources to stay more relevant, even if they're a little bit slow and maybe taking baby steps at this.
Yes, I do think testing product is a really easy one to do. We use a site called Fair that
Mhm.
maybe could bring in some lifestyle goods, and
Yes.
if things don't sell within 60 days, you can return them. So that's a pretty easy win there. And I think just going on this idea of creating experiences and not just transactions,
Mm.
one that I'm looking at and really trying to win on as well, where we maybe the golf shops could host mini clinics or fitting days or
Mhm.
just different ways to bring social time to the shop as well. Again, it's not just a shop, it's part of the golfer's lifestyle as well.
Yes.
We see this with like brands like Nike and Lululemon who have really turned their shops into community hubs where they are doing run clubs
Mm.
or
Mm.
hosting yoga sessions.
Mhm.
That might be another thing to offer as well. Maybe it's a local yoga shop that could do a
Mhm.
class for golfers or
Mhm.
things like that. But really
Yeah.
thinking about the personalization and data-driven retail service that's out there as well. I'm sure a lot of your shops have some sort of POS system that is tracking and seeing what customers have bought before. So keeping track of that information goes back to that authenticity, but with help from AI, right?
Mhm.
Or with help from data, right? Where we could
Mhm.
track what people have bought in the past, know maybe they're on the lookout for certain items or they really love a certain brand. So reaching out to them when those things come in, maybe doing I always love trunk shows. Always it
Mhm.
can't
Mhm.
hurt to bring in a trunk show about something that is really feels right for the as well. And then storytelling and brand alignment. We keep coming back to this, but really we can really take a page from curating assortments that are right for a customer and doing it in a way that feels new and
Mhm.
fresh.
Those are great. I love what you mentioned about like examples with Nike and Lululemon. It almost makes me think of I've been reading about what they call third spaces
Oh, I
and
love
the third
yeah.
space and that it's disappeared after COVID and the want of especially I think younger generations to have a third space that's not home, that's not work, another community focused space, which if someone belongs to a golf club or a country club, that is their third
Yeah,
space. So
100%.
I
Yes.
think really leaning into that like community feeling for
Yeah.
them with third spaces.
Yeah, we actually did an Instagram post last year, and it was because my store is Annie's Blue Ribbon, and Blue Ribbon usually means best in show, first place.
Great.
But we made a blue ribbon with a third on it to
Okay.
say the third place. And
Uh-huh.
I think, and then I also talk about my local deli as my third place.
Mhm.
You're so right, especially in
Mhm.
that country club like mentality where like
Mhm.
people are escaping their home or just want to have fun and meet their friends. There are so many ways that you can lean into that, right?
Mhm.
And you already have that built in there, and people want that familiar face that knows their
Mhm.
name.
Yes.
And I think the golf shop's just a natural fit to that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I know. I feel like some folks might think like dining or the golf or tennis itself would be that, but retail is part of that equation. So it can
Yeah,
absolutely
I
be
used to
part
feel
of
like a bartender. I would like know
that.
everybody's stories and
Yes. Yeah.
I would remember what people bought, and that's why people keep coming back.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know what's going to look good on your customer, what preferences they have,
Mhm.
and those kind of things are like that opposite of shopping online and
Mhm.
all this AI ways that things are supposedly making life easier for
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
But if we have to return something multiple times because it doesn't fit or we're not, oh, the color didn't look right on the screen, like here we're shopping in real life. We can make those changes for you. Maybe it's even those fittings or something like that
Mhm.
to help
Mhm.
the customer get exactly what they want. There could be some thoughts and ideas around that. And there's so much, I think, technology right now with golf clubs and apps and things,
Yes.
ways to track your score and your progress. Maybe there's a way to lean into that from the clothing
Mhm.
perspective
Mhm.
too, where we want to give some of that data-driven but to like the clothing world, but to enhance with that authentic experience that we have at the shop
Mhm.
itself.
I love that. Amazing. For smaller shops that might have more limited resources available to them, What's one simple step that they can take to really bring a fresh, fashion-forward perspective into their merchandising strategies or their buying processes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would focus on connection and not collection. Let's
Mm,
focus on the connection with the people that are shopping there and less about the collections that are being offered. Can be
hmm
many people are very brand oriented and
hmm
buy what the latest is from certain collections, but
Right.
I heard the other day Olympia, I think her last name is pronounced Gayot from J. Crew, and
Okay.
she's the creative brand director there now, and for the last couple of years, and is really noted about how their turnaround has
Mm,
largely
mhm,
been attributed to her. But she was talking about how when she dresses herself and she loves styling, that she really thinks about the best parts of herself that and when she's getting dressed and not about
uh,
what brands or what
uh,
styles are in
uh,
line right now. And I would say that is like that connection that people want to hear from the
mhm,
golf shops themselves. What feels right, what's current, but also appropriate for
mm,
their local neighborhood or where they're at. And only the people in the golf shops are going to know that. It's less about what's the best selling collection and more about that connection with
mm.
people. I
I
also
love
would
that.
say you can find inspiration from anywhere. So
Yes.
don't be too tied to just like golf oriented things.
Mhm,
I mentioned the Wall Street Journal's off
mm,
section. I love the New York Times style section. Think about wherever your customer is. Those are free resources to just think
Right.
and dream about where that customer is, whether it's certain social media sites. This is an anecdotal story about me, but I love to play mahjong and I have started to teach. We've done multiple mahjong lessons and classes at my shop, but now we've built this like great community and now I have 60 people to play mahjong with.
Oh, wow.
And it actually started as just a community idea, but now I
Right.
see that not only is it community, but I'm also helping to bring in some extra income
Yeah.
with that. But it's really once you have people in the door, then
Yeah.
they'll also start to buy more
Right.
things and think of you. You really just want to remain as top of mind as possible. But again,
Right.
that inspiration can come from anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you mentioned mahjong that I learned a couple months ago
Oh my
myself.
gosh.
So I think that that's a perfect example of something you could do or do like a sip and shop or like a
Yeah.
nighttime card game
Yeah.
or mahjong game for the ladies. I think that'd be a home run again, a gathering, a community of people.
Yeah,
That's
and there's
awesome.
so many fun mahjong accessories and tiles, and
Mhm.
everybody like wants to see them and touch them in person. And
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, it's been some nice additional revenue stream for us, as well as
hmm
something like I hadn't really thought about how much fun it was going to be.
Mm.
And that's what people see too, right? That's goes
Right.
back to the authenticity of it all. Feeling excited about the upcoming season and just going all in on what feels right for you and your customer and not having blinders on. I always think about that with my own shop is I have lot of blinders on to a lot of noise around because I know it's like not what's best for us, honing in on what's best for your customer.
Because it is easy to get distracted, I think, especially for maybe younger merchants who have those distractions coming at them. So that's great, just zeroing
Yeah,
in
be
on.
really focused on who
Mhm.
that target customer is and be able to offer them some newness. And you always have to be like moving that customer forward as well, because I learned this at Brooks Brothers the hard way when our customer was like, we really needed to get in and move our customer base forward. And that's when we really started to
Mhm.
dig in more into, we had boys, now there's kids all around,
Mhm.
so all kind of growing businesses.
Yes, awesome. And as we wrap up here, if you could offer one piece of advice to our AGM merchandisers as they plan out the next few years' roadmap for their retail locations, what would you encourage them to focus on most, or a quick lesson or takeaway to keep in mind?
Yes, I would say merchandising as storytelling. let's make those connections, like I said, with all the different brands. That's what really we're doing. People aren't just playing golf, right? It's a lifestyle. It's the aspirational lifestyle for some people as well. So really be in the storytelling business as much as anything else.
Mhm.
Explain that through the products that you're bringing in, the extra additional items, like some of those things that we've mentioned today, I call them little sprinkles that you can get on Fair,
Uh-huh.
other resources. And think about the whole picture of the customer as well and try to meet their needs on as many levels as possible.
Mhm.
Think about, okay, do we need sunscreen too? What
Mhm.
else do we need to make that person's life easier? And then you'll become the go-to shop for
Right.
all of those needs and not just when they need something new to wear
Right.
on the green.
Amazing. Such great lessons. Thank you so much for this conversation. It
Oh,
was so
thank you so much,
terrific.
Justine.
Yeah, it was so nice chatting about trends, talking about color, style, silhouettes, got me thinking more about that third space and
Yes,
so many great ideas, storytelling. So thank you so much for
my
lending your
pleasure.
expertise.
Yes, great to chat with you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
And thank you everyone for tuning in for another episode of the Fairway to Retail Success. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care, everyone.